Hinduism. The Yoga Vasistha, Volume 2, Part 1. Chapter 64. The Germinating Seed. The Supreme Deity is the all-pervading Spirit and the great God and Lord of all. He is without beginning and end, and is self-same with the infinite bliss of his translucent self-cogitation. It is this supreme felicity and purely intellectual substance whence the living soul and mind have their rise prior to their production of the universe. That is, the eternal and inert bliss called Brahma became the living soul, anima of the active mind, mens, which created the world. Rama asked, how could the self-cogitation of Brahma, as the infinite spirit and one without a second, conceive in it a finite living soul other than itself, and which was not in being? The active and inactive souls are not the one and the same thing, nor can the immutable and infinite be changed to one of a finite and changeful nature, nor was there a secondary being coexistent with the unity of the self-existent God. Vasistha replied, the immense and transparent spirit of Brahma remained in a state of asat, non-existence, a state of ineffable bliss as seen by the adept yogi, but of formidable vastness as conceived by the uninitiated novice. That is, the meditation of the infinite is a delight to the spiritualist, but it is a horror to the gross idolater, whose mind knows nothing beyond matter and material forms. This state of supreme bliss, which is ever tranquil, and full with the pure essence of God, is altogether undefinable and incomprehensible, even by the most proficient in divine knowledge. God is unknowable is the motto of the wise, Athenians and modern agnostics. Then sprang a power and hypostasis like the germ of a seed, and possessed of consciousness and energy, that is called the living and conscious soul, and which must last until its final liberation. This is the demiurge, an emanation from God and the source and soul of the world. The clear mirror of the mind of this being, reflected in its vast vacuous sphere, the images of innumerable worlds set above one another like statues engraved upon it. Know, Rama, the living soul to be an inflation of the divine spirit, like the swelling of the sea and the burning of a candle when its flame is unshaken by the wind. The living soul is possessed of a finite cognizance, as distinguished from the clear and calm consciousness of the divine spirit. Its vitality is a flash of the vacuous intellect of Brahma, and appertaining to the nature of the living God. Divina particula are. The Lord says, Asmi, I am that I am, but the living soul knows itself to be Soham Asmi, I am he, or of him. Vitality is the essential property of the soul, resembling the inseparable properties of motion in the wind, warmth in the fire, and coldness in the ice. Animation is the natural faculty and necessary property of the soul. Our ignorance of the nature of the divine intellect and spirit throws us to the knowledge of ourselves by our self-consciousness, and this it is which is called the living soul. It is by means of this positive consciousness that we know our egoism or self-existence. It strikes us more glaringly than a spark of fire, and enlightens us to the knowledge of ourselves more than any other light. As in looking up to heaven, its blue vault is presented to the sight, beyond which our eyes have not the power to pierce. So, in our inquiry to the nature of the soul, we see no more than the consciousness of ourselves and nothing besides. That is, the subjective soul only is knowable, and not beyond it. Our knowledge of the soul presents to us in the form of ego known by its thoughts, like the vacuous sky appearing as a blue sphere by the cause of the clouds. The ego is the subject of thoughts and self-cogitation. Egoism differentiates the soul from our ideas of space and time, and stirs within it like the breath of winds by reason of its subjectivity of thoughts. Differentiation of the subjective ego from the objective space and time is as the difference of ego and non-ego, I and not I, le moi et non moi, das Ich und nicht ich. That which is the subject of thoughts is known as the ego, and is various styled as the intellect, the soul, the mind, the maya or delusion, and prakriti or nature. The ego personified is Rudra. The personification of chitta cogitation is Vishnu or Jiva, or the soul is Brahma, and of the manas or mind is the maya or illusion. The mind, chetas, which is the subject of thoughts, contemplates on the nature of elementary matter, and thus becomes of itself the quintessence of 5 elements. The mind is opposed to matter, but being the principle of volition, produces matter at its will. The quintessential mind next becomes a spark of fire of itself, and remains as a dim star, a nebula, in the midst of the vacuity of the yet unborn universe. The nebula are the primary formations of heavenly bodies, called Brahmandas, or mundane eggs. The mind takes the form of a spark of fire by thinking on its essence, which gradually develops itself like the germ of a seed, in the form of the mundane egg by its internal force. The same fiery spark, figuratively called the Brahmanda, or mundane egg, became as a snowball amidst the water, and conceived the great Brahma within its hollow womb. The Spirit of God, dove-like, sat brooding over the hall of deep. Wilten. Then, as sensuous spirits assume the bodily forms at pleasure, although they dissolve as a magic city in empty air, so this Brahma appeared in an embodied form to view.